Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Reality Check Podcast. I am joined tonight by I am loaded up on coffee Marcus and Raul Mas. Tonight's title, welcome gentlemen. Tonight's title is First and Goal with Iran. Do we score or fumble? Before we get into tonight's topic, I wanted to touch on the recent developments, what I call the Swalwell implosion. It has been nothing short of incredible. The deep state that wanted to take out Trump has been at it for 7 years and gotten diddly squat. It only took them 3 days to dispatch the man I call Swallows Well online. It's also what happens when you don't handle it back when he was screwing a lady named Fang Fei. Had he been dealt with then, he would not have done the damage that he's doing now. And I'm looking at the tentacles, as always. The people that enabled him, the people that Jonathan Turley called him, law professor Turley called him a made man. And let's think about who made this man. Pelosi, Schiff, Newsom. That's who made him, among others.
Yeah.
Pelosi, it doesn't matter. She's going to be gone pretty soon. But I also think, and this other guy, Gallego,
Yeah,
he's in,
his best friend,
yeah,
supposedly,
but he didn't know a thing,
who claims he had no clue that his best friend was a philanderer.
Guess what, my friends? If you're sitting in a camel and there's a guy next to you in the camel and you're both shirtless and you're going like this, okay, you know who he's fucking around with and he knows who you're fucking around with. Give me a break. And why that's important? That's a sitting senator, if I am not mistaken. So he can be the gift that keeps on giving. I look at the timing and I'm wondering if maybe the fingerprints of billionaire Steyer are not on this. Bill, is it Bill Steyer, I believe?
No, Tom Steyer, I think, right?
Tom Steyer, yes. Yeah, right. I'm thinking Tom and Bill, my old roommates. Okay, so yeah, it was Tom Steyer. When you got that kind of money, that was not a kept secret. That was known. It was known all along, but they enabled him until he was no longer a useful idiot. So what do
Mhm.
we have now? We have the two leading candidates for governor of California are Republicans. I think that it's full panic mode in California. And who are they going to run? Potato face, Katie, whatever, Katie Porter. I don't know. It's obviously there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of fraud. The GOP is going to have to lawyer up seriously in California. Marcus, what if anything do you have to opine on the Swalwell meltdown?
You know what? I look at it like more like political theater. It's like a East and West. It's like a Cold War, and what the Democrats and Republicans try to do is establish a detente, a balance of power. But the thing about the Republicans, they want to have parity, while the Democrats want to win the game. And I look at it as like more like a chessboard, where uh, the issue with Swalwell. I mean, he got into Congress like 2013, and he got into the Intel community in 2015 committee in 2015, the same year when the FBI approached him and he broke ties with Fang Fang. So he's been compromised in being a member of the Intel community since 2015 until he got removed in 2023. That's 8 years. And that blows my mind. But the thing is, it's all political theater. And it's a game that both parties play where if you're going to remove one of our pieces, we're going to have to remove one of your pieces because they just want to establish a balance of power. And I think the name was being floated around with if you if you want if you want to take out Swalwell, we want to take out Mills, and they didn't want to do that for a while because because one thing is how you call them useful idiots. It's how useful you are to the party. If you are a reliable voter, if you do what the party tells you, if you are a good fundraiser, if you create hell on the other side, you are a good chess piece. And how I kind of gained that perspective is like when I ran for office. I went to Tallahassee and I went to various associations, and one of them told me that just as a matter of just being forthright, he's like, you get some elected official who want to like change the whole dynamics of how a business is being run, which could affect their members in their association. So they look at it as, if you're a new elected official, you're a pawn, but you could be a useful pawn by either as a vote or setting up a legislation to counter whatever bad legislation that they're proposing or try to do an amendment. But if the further you go up, you could become a rook or a queen or a king in how the political chess pieces are moved. And for Swalwell, he was more than a pawn because, like I said, he was a reliable Democratic player. He raised money. He went against Trump.
He was the person that everybody was looking to as being the next governor of California. I mean, what kind of a chess piece is that, man? I mean, that's like, they were going to make him king,
And Congress has like a slush fund. I guess it was made since 1997, and they've already paid out like 18 million, and it covered over 300 lawsuits or settlements. And it's not just sexual harassment, but among other things, like maybe improper firings or harassment. But if it's like almost 300 cases, that's that's a lot of prima donnas and as elected officials dealing with that. So,
Raul, would you say he was more or less valuable than, I don't see, and I could be wrong. My sister lives in Corey Mills district. She's no fan, but what usefulness would Corey Mills have possessed that they've kept him around as long as they have? We're all going to elect another.
We had like a few votes, between the Democratic and Republican Party. Yeah. It's only separated by a few. There's not much of a swing, so each vote counts. Each vacancy counts.
Yeah, but what strikes me as odd, man, I mean, this whole thing, I mean, as I recall, this last week or so, it blew up when, some women came forward, a woman in particular came forward and said, this guy raped me, and I don't think, she was set up by the Republicans. I mean, maybe, there's some shenanigans going on in the background, but, this I just find it so hard to believe that what these people are claiming, Pelosi and Adam Schiff and Newsom and everybody was like, oh, we never, even this guy, Ruben Gallegos, is like, oh, he's my best friend, but I never had any idea whatsoever that he was like, cheating on his wife and raping women and doing this and doing that. I just don't buy it. It's all freaking bullshit, man. Right?
I think Kevin McCarthy, he did an interview where it's who's pulling the strings behind all the machinations, and right. He's looking at like Nancy Pelosi, because when it comes back to the governorship, she had to do like the cold hard math, because of the jungle primaries. You get 2 Republicans, but you have to whittle down the Democrats,
right?
And then you got like the October surprise, not necessarily the October surprise, but you get like who's the most vulnerable and who's the most marketable. And the issue about Swalwell, that's well known for about a decade. He's been a congressman for like 12, 13 years. So like I think Angelina Luna, a representative, mentioned like, this is well known. He's a dirtbag. So is Gallego and Mills. It's been circulating, but the 2 political headsheads of each party, they didn't want to deal with any of that because they're valuable votes. They're valuable soldiers, and in this Cold War detente.
Let me add another little provision.
Kind of a hell of a way to run the country, huh? Kind of a hell of a way to run the country, where you're basically, it's just trying to maintain, like you describe it, Marcus, sort of this Cold War balance, right? And of course, like, since the Republicans are skating on thin ice with such a thin majority, they don't have the wherewithal to really, stick it to the Democrats. I mean, because they can come back to haunt them, right? I mean, they can do the same thing to the Republicans. And we'll see, man. Look, I mean, the midterm elections are coming up. I've got some serious concerns about whether or not the GOP is going to be able to hang on to the House. I think they'll be able to hang on to the Senate. Um, but and it gets to the topic that we're going to talk about now about Iran and whatnot. But I don't think the president is doing himself any favors with some of the crazy shit he's been saying this last week, and that image that came out of that they published of him in a white robe, healing people as if he was Jesus on Easter Sunday, taking on the Pope. None of this stuff really helps the president. Meantime, the Iranians, he keeps claiming that oh, we've won, we've destroyed their navy, we've destroyed their air force. But yet, these guys don't want to sign a peace deal. So, he keeps having to threaten them. Meantime, gas is still pretty damn high. And I just think that, the longer this drags out, the more it's going to put in danger the next election. And I have a bad feeling that, unless this mess, and it's now turning into a mess in Iran, okay, gets cleaned up pretty quickly, it's going to hurt Trump, and it's going to hurt the Republicans come the midterm elections.
Let me read the Swalwell, then we'll get into this title, because you pretty much are straight into our title topic.
Actually, Carlos, I want you to talk, because you used to be part of the Dental Association, and I'm sure what I talked about, like the chess pieces and the wheeling and dealing to protect your association's interest, and about getting votes and the horse trading that's going on. I'm sure you could enlighten us about how it pertains like Swalwell and whatnot.
When I would have lunch with people like yourself, and that's how we met when you approached the Florida Dental Association for backing, I would meet with anybody that was going to run, regardless of party. And it was very simple. We meet as the tooth party. We don't talk about Second Amendment, Roe v. Wade, the border. That was not the topic. We were the party of dental advocacy and dental issues for the people of Florida. So after our conversation, if we felt, and we would show you what were our issues, what were our thumbs up issues and our thumbs down. If you could support the majority or most or all of our issues, you were in. We were going to help you. And I immediately, when I drove out of that place with you, I immediately called the FDA. I spoke to Joanne Hart, our director of legislative affairs, and I said, this guy's great. He's going to help us. He can back our agenda. And that also would apply to Democrats. So we were one of the few organizations. As a matter of fact, full disclosure, we were more likely to have bullshit and obstruction from people like the Diaz de la Portilla family, a bunch of hacks, a bunch of career politician hacks who hated dentistry. And boy, was a mistake that was.
Because out of curiosity, what were those issues that you dealt with the state legislature in the dental field? I'm trying to think. I mean, doctors have malpractice insurance. Is that an issue for you as well? I mean, what are those hot button issues that your industry faced?
I will tell you, there's something called dental therapists. A therapist is a high school graduate, not even quite with the training of a hygienist. The original concept was born in New Zealand, okay? New Zealand, a socialist, small population country. The only areas of the United States where it was ever implemented were the remote tribal regions where you got to go in with pontoon plane of Alaska, because that was the only place that couldn't field dentists. And what they were able to do is they could do fillings, they could do injections, they could do extractions. And the plan was, if you run those McDentist clinics, you could tell the new dentist out of school, you don't like the salary we're paying you? You know what? Betty, the therapist, will do it for half your salary. So, go F yourself, doctor. And you're getting a substandard, and none of those legislators would ever take their children, their mother, or themselves to a therapist for dentistry, of course. But it was, for thee, but not for me. So that was probably the biggest issue, allowing that. And that issue is the guacamole, the turd that won't flush, year after year after year. Also that Anthony, what's his name up there? Daniel Anthony Perez, another prick, Speaker of the House. He was fully on board with them. And we made it our point to oppose him literally, and he backed off on it. I think he's been trying to bring it back. Fortunately, he'll be terming out soon. He'll probably run for something else. Probably run for Senate, and that's his district. We can't fix that. So those are the issues. And the Diaz de la Portilla family, and before them, Julio Rabina, little pint-sized Julio, little Tom Thumb Julio from South Miami, he declared war on us too. And you know what? No politician ever declared war on the Florida Dental Association and won. We whooped every one of their asses. So that was, and the other issue was, labs. Most dental labs are run by dental technicians who make things like the night guard, that we were talking about previously, right? They wanted a law, the Florida Dental Lab Association, not dental lab, Dental Lab Association wanted a law mandating that every commercial lab, there's about 1,300 in the state of Florida, would have to have by law a CDT, certified dental technician, which does not mean any better skills than a regular dental technician. It means they just took some infomercial courses, and some of them are phenomenally talented. I know because I work with some of them. But that mandate was physically undoable because there were only about 400 a year max from the vocational technical programs graduating. But they wanted a law requiring every lab to have one. Why? Because there was a particular Navy vet House member, I believe his name was Stan Jordan, and he got greased by the Dental Lab Association. So that's why. So those are the battles we fought.
Just want to make a point. There's a difference between expelling a member of the House or a member of Congress, yes, House and Senate, or impeaching. And the last time they tried to impeach was like William Blount, and that's like in the 1700s, or maybe not after the Civil War. But no, it was after the American Revolutionary War. And the thing is, the impeachment failed. That's why the issue now is going towards expulsion. But the thing is, they still need 2/3 of a vote. And it's rare, very rare, to expel somebody because of the 2/3, because you get like party loyalists to like stand firm, and then you get like maybe some independent people, but it's really hard to. But what I think is an issue is the type of pressure that's forcing an elected official to resign. Like what kind of dirt and what kind of level of coercion they could do to resign, because it's like, because a lot of time the House or Senate, what they do is try to suppress all the dirt or quell an investigation or stop it altogether. So I think what's happening is like, hey, if you don't resign, this investigation is going to go forward. It's going to get referred to the DOJ, blah, 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 blah. Or sometimes you get like a news story that's so out of control that it's like holding a rope. It just slips out of the hands. Like, all right, we can't do anything. We can't save you. So,
don't forget that George Santos, who apparently that 60% thing didn't see George Santos's ass. He was expelled. He was the first person that contacted him, Swalwell, and the other guy, Amy Gonzalez, and he said, resign. Don't make the mistake I made that I did not resign, and I was expelled, and it was humiliating, and it's a rigorous thing that you don't want to go through. I just wanted to close on Swalwell by saying that I believe what happened in California, he was kept around because they have no bench, they have no candidates. I mean, look at their candidates. They have no candidates, and he was name recognition. Think about this. The two of you, if you are a Congress member, that is the gravy train in a district where you're going to be you're a young person, you're going to be perpetually reelected every 2 years, like clockwork. Why would you leave that and go for the governorship, which is a hellacious mess to deal with, especially in a state like California, where in two terms you're.
You know what? It's ego, Carlos. It's they believe that they're hot shit because they're a congressman. They start believing their own press, right? And it's not a question, it's the ego, man. I think people do it because, you know what, they genuinely believe that they're, the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that they like.
Yeah, but your ego will last for 8 years. Your ego will have an 8-year fuse, where your conventional ego can have a decades-long fuse. That's my point. An expiration date.
Well, you look at Matt Gaetz and Marguerite Taylor Greene. Matt Gaetz, he could have probably stayed, but he was going through like an ethics committee, possible investigation. The only way to stop it is to resign and go for AG, but that still followed him because then he had to get confirmation. So he didn't really think too far ahead out of that.
Is he on movie? I think he's not on Newsmax. I don't think Newsmax would touch him. I think OAN, One American News Network.
He's not on Newsmax. I haven't seen him on Newsmax. He's someplace else.
I think he has his own podcast.
Yeah, I think he's got his own podcast or something.
I mean, we have a podcast, right? Before we go on to the topic of tonight, prediction: Does Steve Hilton win the governorship of California? Yes or no? I'm going to say yes.
Boy,
Marcus.
I'm betting odds. He has like a 60 to 65% chance of winning. Yeah. If with the jungle primary, we get the two Republicans, but it depends on how they whittle down, because like they did a polling after Swalwell resigned, and the only one who got a nice bump was the Hispanic, and he's like fifth tier candidate, so he got he went up like 3 or 4 points.
Yeah,
Katie Porter just maintained, and like the other guy got like maybe 2 percentage points. The self-made billionaire.
Yeah, Steyer, but that's not a good news. That's not a good piece of news. You know, Ward.
I think
this guy's voters are all going to flood to me. It's okay. It sounds like what you just said. It's not happening.
It depends on how well they whittle down the opposition or the candidates. It's like what happened with Biden. All of a sudden, they coalesced around Biden to be the nominee, and a number of people were dropping out. I wonder why, but yeah.
Biden saved his ass with the South Carolina vote. So Raul, does Houston get elected California gov? Yes or no?
Look, I like the guy. I think he's their best shot at sort of saving the state, but I think the Democratic Party is going to find a way, rightly, wrongly, legally, illegally, to do everything they can to hold on to California. That's their last best hope, for maintaining credibility, a sense, power, et cetera, even though they've been losing population and the state is a complete fiscal mess right now, billions of dollars in waste, The latest figure I saw was 480 billion in fraud. Just outrageous stuff. But I think that it's their last. That's the hill that they're going to die on. Let's put it that way. So I don't know if Mr. Hilton's going to find his way into the governorship. I hope so. But they're going to die
if he wins, when they count the vote like 30 days later, he'll lose. That's my take.
Yeah, exactly. He'll win, and 30 days later he'll lose. That's what I'm saying. I mean, they're going to die on that hill, man. No matter what.
In 2024, that they tried to do that, and they got away with it in some districts, but not in others. We flipped the Trump flipped the most districts. Ironically, it was California, which would have been the last guess I would have chosen. If they'd said, if they'd asked me which state is Trump most likely to flip blue districts, voting districts to red, I would have never said California. Yet it happened. But anyway, we shall see. I think also the wildfires and that mess and the homeless issues, it comes down to messaging and what my old blue dog Democrat buddy used to say. As long as you guys keep treating elections like garden parties and the Democrats treat them like wars, you'll lose. Let's see how they lawyer up, and let's see what happens with it.
I've been watching some YouTube videos about like San Diego. I mean, I lived there, and it was like, like paradise on earth. But like I've been so far removed, but like the videos I've been watching lately is San Diego is becoming like San Francisco. There's open urine and feces, and it's not safe to walk. It smells. You have to be outside of San Diego to enjoy it.
Yeah, this campaign video would be the homeless camps. I think some of that street takeover of blocks in LA. those would be really good videos. And bring back, show videos of those fires. You got with these people, you're going to play dirty. So let's go on now to tonight's topic, which is first and goal with Iran. Do we score or fumble? I'm looking at there's conflicting information because we know how honest the Iranian media is, the Iranian reporting. But the reality is they just took out the engine room. At least they were kind enough. Our Navy said, clear, vacate the engine room. We are preparing to disable. And kaboom, they put a hole that a few of us could crawl through in the engine room. I saw some shaky video, probably handheld on a phone, of the burning tanker. Now I'm wondering, do we take that oil? But does
It
Trump?
wasn't a tank. It was a container ship. It was a container ship. It was a container
Was a
ship.
container ship.
Yeah.
So there's no oil to take.
With containers on it. I don't know what's in the containers, but it wasn't. My understanding is it wasn't an oil vessel.
It's a container ship. That means cargo containers. Who knows what was in those cargo containers? Don't you think our military knows what's in those containers?
We'll find out soon enough, I think, because it's under U.S. control right now.
Now we can do a search. Marcus, go ahead.
If they make this a book, I would buy it, because what's not known is, like, if you're going to start a conflict, it takes money and resources. And if you don't have a declaration of war, the only other avenue is through the War Powers Resolution, where you only have 60 days before Congress gets to vote to fund it or not. So, right. I think it'll be an interesting book, because with the Trump administration, they have to really think about, if they're going to engage in Iran, the day they start firing missiles, that starts a clock, day one. So they have to have like a timetable of getting these objectives done, and coordinate with like Israel and any possible allies, and what they have to accomplish every day, every week, until day 60. Because then they have to look at Congress, where we are with the votes.
Well, wait a second, but aren't we? We're on day 50 already, I think, of this battle.
April 29th is day 60.
Right.
So
we're almost there.
I know, and that's the big hub about, because that's what I mentioned about the last podcast, or the one before. It's all about the votes at this point. It's going to be embarrassing where Trump can't commit, because they vote that we're not going to fund it. However, the only other option is to do creative funding, like draw from the Department of War, like pull some funding out of whatever money that's allocated to continue beyond the 60 days. But it's going to be like a short-term measure. So everything's going full throttle to accomplish what he could do in 60 days.
Yeah, my concern with this situation is this: the Iranians, we think in America, we think with overnight. I want it now. We think microwave. They think cooking under fossilized conditions for centuries. Okay, they are patient. They have not. Besides, it's not like they have anything else to do or that they can do. My concern is that Iran has made the calculus that Trump will not be able to remove the IRGC, that he will either not have the balls to, or this country will not support getting boots on the ground and having Americans coming back in flag draped coffins. And because of that, Joey Jones from Fox, the guy with the titanium legs, he said something very, very prescient a couple of weeks ago. He said the Iranian regime was never designed to win wars. They're designed to survive wars. And that is a concern I have, that they would wait him out and know that as the midterms approach, and we've got a party in this country that, in my opinion, are traitors. They are cheering for the enemy. And let's not forget, that's nothing new. We are Hamas, really? Jews for Palestine? We've got a mentally ill major chunk of this country that is happy to have this country humiliated, all because they hate Trump. They hate Trump more than they love the country. That concerns me. What do you guys think about that strategy, that they're just waiting it out, and that in the end, the IRGC, the Iranian people do not have the power, nor do we have the way, unless there's something I'm not aware of, to arm them and get the IRGC, give them enough power where they start holding Nuremberg type tribunals and hanging those people. I think it would be great if that were happening, but I think we're a long way off. And when that happened in Germany, we lost a shitload of GIs and Russians who I don't give a shit about, but we did lose a lot of soldiers to take over Germany. You guys, any input on that?
I think the IRGC, when they did the calculus, they said, well, this is a presidency, it's a republic, it's not a tyranny. He has to be held accountable, and they have to know about the War Powers Resolution. What they're trying to do is ride out the storm, the 60 days, see how the vote is going to turn out, if there's going to be funding or not. And that's going to happen way before the midterms. So, and then they're going to see what comes out of that. But I think with Trump, he's going to have like some backup plans. Like if he can't continue, then you have to have regional power players take control, like Iran with Jordan or Saudi Arabia, Qatar, just to exert influence to kind of offer stability in the region.
Well, he's also got the EU. NATO is against him, and NATO's against him because, and I'm going to say something that's maybe offensive. I don't care. The NATO nations, particularly Great Britain, France, Germany, they are not occupied. They are infested with jihadists. They're infested with jihadists, and they're scared shitless. And that is keeping them from doing anything because they don't want to see rioting and mass mayhem and chaos on their streets for which they are not equipped to handle. Raul, your take on the delicate balance.
I think I think what I think Marcus has brought up a very good point that both sides are sort of on the clock here, right? I mean, I think both sides are cognizant that there's going to be a lot of the end game here is going to be decided in the next few days, right? Certainly before the end of the month, and we're almost at the end of the month already.
20th.
So I think there's a lot of scrambling and maneuvering going on. I think that unfortunately the attacks against the leadership in Tehran, even though we wiped out a lot of the top layers, there are still, I think there's an internal battle going on, and it's become pretty obvious with the seizure of this ship on the high seas, that the IRGC wants to keep on fighting, and that whoever is the foreign minister that's quote unquote negotiating the peace, they're at odds with each other, right? Because the foreign minister is the one that's saying, oh yes, we're going to sign something. Oh yes, we're going to meet with JD Vance again in Pakistan. And then it's the IRGC that's saying, oh yeah, well, you took one of our ships and now you got to pay for it. So I think that it's completely disjointed. There's a serious lack of command and control in Tehran. Nobody knows who's really in charge. And that makes it more difficult to reach an agreement rather than push towards an agreement, because we don't really know who the hell we're dealing with and whether they have the power or not. But the fact of the matter is that there's very little that the IRGC can do at this point, given how much their military power has been degraded over the past 30, 40 days. So they can do a lot of saber rattling. They can send out some of their small little go fast boats to try and attack U.S. destroyers or something, drones, whatever. But I think they've got a very limited capability. But I think part of the problem here, man, is you're dealing, in the case of the IRGC, which are the fanatics, the military, the paramilitary group that was funded and beholden to the Ayatollahs. Okay. Those are the most radical elements. Those are the ones that are welcoming, the coming apocalypse, because it's for them, it's the recreation of the Muslim, I forget the name of it, the Muslim,
Mahdi.
huh?
The 12th Imam, the Mahdi.
I'm sorry.
The 12th Imam, the Mahdi.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're hoping for, right? So
right.
It's really kind of screwed up. I don't know what's going to happen here. I think that Trump I never when this peace agreement was reached a few days ago, I never really bought that. I didn't really think it was going to hold, and unfortunately, I think I've been proven right that it is not holding and it's not going to hold, and I don't think anybody is necessarily going to show up in Pakistan. I hope I'm wrong. Okay,
You said they're not.
I think Trump,
The
I'm sorry.
foreign minister said they're not going as of recently. Of course, that can change in an hour.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Carlos.
The foreign minister recently, the most recent, you were talking about the IRGC being at odds with the foreign minister. The last I heard, and that was today, the foreign minister said, we will not go to Islamabad.
Well, so there you go. So look, if they don't show up, then I think Trump has no choice but to do what he has said he's going to do, which is to start blowing up power plants and blowing up bridges, and hope. Okay, because there doesn't seem to be a plan. Because I think if there is a plan, we would have seen it play out at this point in terms of regime change. But there doesn't seem to be any plan towards changing the leadership. And so what's your alternative now? You start breaking things and killing more people. There is this sort of saying that if you kill enough of them, sooner or later they stop fighting. But we don't know what that entails in terms of how many people we have to kill, how much shit we got to blow up before they finally give up. And I guess we're going to find out in the next week or so if in fact we need to go down that road. And I hope and pray we don't. I hope that cooler heads prevail. But it seems like the Iranians have, despite their limited options, they have played this hand pretty well, quite frankly. And I think that this isn't just about military might. I think the other thing that needs to be acknowledged is that the economic pressure is also what I think has been very keen on their minds, because if they can't have ships coming or leaving their coastline, their economy will collapse. I mean, this is a country whose main export is petroleum. They have wells that are pumping oil every single day. By now, all of their storage facilities in Iran are filled with oil, right? I mean, waiting to be picked up and taken on ships to Asia primarily. At some point, they have to make the hard decision of beginning to shut down oil production. And I mean, I'm not an oil expert, but as I understand it, that's not a process that takes from one day to the next. And worse yet, once you start shutting down those oil wells, then it's a bear to get them up and running again. And it's a process that you need to go through. But you can't keep pumping oil if you have nowhere to store it, because all your tanks are full and nobody's picking up the oil. So you got all this oil sitting around in storage tanks in Iran. You got to stop pumping more oil, and no ships are coming to pick it up. So what do? I mean, all that oil revenue starts to dry up. So I think the Iranians are under enormous pressure. Something's going to have to give. But up until now, they've been playing this, I think, given their limited options, pretty darn well. I mean, I got to give them credit.
When you worship death and you don't give a flying fuck about your population and you're not worried about elections. No. What a luxury, right? And they have those luxuries. Marcus, I know you've been wanting to chime in.
I think one thing to consider is what is the transition going to be like? And there's like various options. One is an immediate transition of power where the son of Shah assumes control. That's one option, but unlikely because IRGC doesn't want that. The next option is what we call like the Maduro option, where you take enough of the heads to the point where eventually they're going to be like a moderate who would assume responsibility. And with that, there could be a slow release of power to the people, having a moderate in. And then another option is like letting the IRGC maintain control, but in such a weakened state whether they're in control or not, it's going to be a civil war. If it's 89, 90 million people, and just say 10 to 15% of them are fanatics or part of the IRGC, that's 8 to 12 million out of 90. And when you look at what happened in Iraq, it was 60% Shiite, 35% Sunni, and then maybe 5% Kurds. But that was like sectarian on sectarian conflict. Like IEDs and mosques and marketplaces, and police and military recruits being killed on the side of the road, banks, like execution everywhere. So it could be like very bloody if getting to the Civil War. But my take is two likely outcomes of that. It's going to be like a slow roll, as I mentioned before, where it starts from the west, where you get the Kurds, the Turkmens, and Azerbaijani Iranians to take ownership and slowly roll eastward, and then use like CIA or the Mossad to funnel arms to the regular Iranians to combat the IRGC, and it'll be a protracted conflict. However, with that being the case, with a weak in Iran on their whatever southeastern border, you get Afghanistan, and that's just an enclave of extremists. So they're gonna like it'll be like a call for the caliphate to like to help with their Muslim brothers, even though they might not share the same ideology. You're gonna see a lot of extremists funneling through that pipeline. So it's gonna be very protracted. So if the U.S. is forced to remove itself, I think they'll still be a player by offering intel, satellite, blockade of tankers, and let like the regional players take control, like Israel, and maybe like I said, Saudi Arabia or whatnot, and then have the CIA get more involved, not the military, but the CIA. So it's like a funding issue to kind of finagle their objectives around it. That's how I see things.
And this language also, I agree, makes a lot of sense and sounds more feasible. That also requires us sticking around to referee this thing, or at least from the peripheries. And you're going to get people here that want to block that. You're going to get an opposition party here that's going to say, we're going to defund it. We want to hold you accountable. This is a forever war. They're going to talk it up because they don't care if this country is humiliated or defeated, as long as they can win the election in November. So that's something else that Trump has to deal with. And I'm going to just make this remark for the younger listeners. A lot of you may not have had the kind of World War history that was taught when those of us in this panel were in school. For those that say, oh, we're going to bomb this, oh, we're going to bomb factories, oh, we're going to bomb bridges, we're going to take out power plants. The United States and England and Russia, to some degree, the Allies in World War II, which NBC famously called America's greatest generation. We firebombed to burning rubble, 49 cities in Germany. We dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima, and 3 days later, Nagasaki. We did that to win the war. So there was one hell of a lot of civilian casualty and carnage. Then we had to rebuild those countries, which we did. Today, both Germany and Japan are economic industrial powerhouses. Now, no, I'm not delusional enough to think Iran would ever be that. But my point is, blowing shit up and breaking things, unfortunately, is a necessary evil to win a decisive victory and take out an adversary, a dictatorial, oppressive regime in a place where the local population is unable to do so. So when people tell you about it, we're going to blow up bridges, oh, that's horrible. That's peanuts compared to what we did again. But it's a different world, a different time. Media wasn't involved. There wasn't an internet. People weren't being made aware. But we did a lot of damage and we blew a lot of shit up to win World War II, even though this is not World War II and will not become World War III. but people forget that. It's easy to forget what we had to do to win that war. And I wonder what, to what degree will the public's lack of knowledge about that be a hindrance?
Yeah. Listen, I mean, you're right. I mean, World War II, we dropped nuclear bombs to put an end to Japanese aggression in the Pacific. We firebombed, Dresden and a whole lot of German cities. So it's just kind of interesting that here we are in the 21st century, and we can't seem to sort of shake this. It's just human nature, man. I mean, we just we can't find a way to sort of get along with each other, and it seems that whatever peace dividend there came at the end of the Cold War, it didn't last very long. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, that's true. Cold War's never ended, in my opinion. Cold War has been going on. Otherwise, Vladimir Putin wouldn't be in power. If the Cold War truly had ended, and I also believe that as long as there's Islam and communism on the face of the earth, world peace is a pipe dream, is a fantasy. Marcus.
I was kind of thinking further about like my idea of what's going to happen, like the slow roll going eastward, where you're going to get like Israel involved and the U.S. with their intel agencies and funneling weapons. I predict like there's going to be a lot of covert action afterwards just to eliminate the IRGC because with the partisans, they're going to feed a lot of good intel to remove the IRGC leadership in the towns and cities while it's going eastward. That's my prediction.
Do
And
you, yeah. Do you see the Iranian people? I believe they helped with the pilot, the down pilot a couple of weeks ago, the lieutenant colonel. I think there was some help from the Iranians. To what degree do you believe that the Iranians absolutely loathe the IRGC? They hate them like poison. So to what degree would that be a factor and enable help the removal of the IRGC?
if they get money and funding and training, I mean, operated within the shadows, striking at will. Uh, right now, like the IRGC, they're hunkered down. They don't want to they don't want to present like a group target, so they're scattered. Anytime there's any coalescing of a gathering, the intel you see like a surgical strike because the intel of the info feed is pretty fast. My take is it's going there won't be a shortage of intel for like the CIA or Mossad or like a homegrown intel apparatus within Iran to work its way to eliminate the IRGC. I think they'll be running scared because it's hard to fight the shadows when they don't have first strike capability. I mean, it's a lot different than protesting in the street, but it's a lot different when you're dealing with people with guns and bombs, and their ability to strike at will. So it'll be a different ball game after the next the 2 3 months. That's my take.
Given the loss of palms that we keep hearing about the last couple of weeks, how they cut all the palms, how there's no internet, how nobody can talk to each other. I'm wondering, and you probably know more about this than I. How is that intel getting to where it has to go? Because I believe Marcus is right. There's a hell of a lot of intel. Are they passing cliff notes and as post-its? What the hell are they doing that intel is getting out, given the information, the comms uh, blockage that was imposed?
Look, I don't know. I know that there hasn't been internet in Iran since this war began. So, communications within Iran are very sketchy at best. So, and a lot of people are, hunkered home at home and, not wanting to go out. I mean, kind of knowing what the hell is out there. However, there is, I think, one good source of intelligence in terms of what's going on in Iran, and that is probably from Israel and the Mossad. The Israelis, as has been demonstrated time and time again over the past decades, have done a phenomenal job of infiltrating people into Iran, and they have sources, and they have Iranians that are on their payroll, that are communicating with Israel through in the leadership of the Israeli Mossad, and giving them I think a very good view of what's happening inside the country. I imagine that information is also being shared with the U.S. So I think a lot of our intel is actually coming from Israel. One of the things that has happened over the past decades, as Iraq, as Syria, as Iran, Algeria, all these countries started, expelling their Jewish populations from their countries. Where did all those Jews go? They all went to Israel. Okay, so you have a lot of expatriate, Persian Jews in Israel, expatriate, Syrian Jews in Israel, expatriate Iraqi Jews in Israel, and all of those people, or a lot of those people, are ripe for recruitment by the Mossad. They share the same faith. They're Jewish, and they want their country back. I mean, there was at one point a fairly large Jewish population in Iran, and those people want a free Iran again. And I have no doubt that the Mossad has very effectively over the years managed to send a lot of those people back into Iran, under different guises and covers and whatnot. I mean, it's been talked about how they've done it, et cetera, et cetera. They've used other countries that still maintain relationships with Iran and gotten false passports or stolen passports to get them in. But I think there's a pretty big network in Iran that is feeding information to Israel, and I think that will also be what the catalyst for trying to motivate regime change, right, through those assets that are already in the country. But again, none of us here are privy to that intel. I mean, that's very sensitive stuff. The Israelis, I'm sure, share it with the U.S., but they're not really, telling us what their, who specifically are their sources, because they want to protect them as well, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, no matter how much we're allies, they understand that they need to protect their own assets in Israel, because this administration might protect them, but the next administration might not, right? So we'll see, man. I just know that there's just a lot of uncertainty. I think, for me, the saddest thing about all of this is that up until Easter weekend, okay, I think, this was going pretty well for the Trump administration. The Trump administration had, put the ceasefire into place. It was taking the high road, okay? It was, I think, when Scott Bessent came out and said, "Oh, now we're going to start putting pressure on their money flows, and we're going to put this economic noose." He launched Operation Economic Fury, I think he called it, right, to begin tracing all this money going into Iran. I think that was good. And what really sort of started derailing things again, and I hate to say this, but it's frustrating to no end, is Donald Trump, who seems incapable, who seems now seeking to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, coming out again, saying crazy shit about wiping out a civilization, getting involved in a verbal joust with the Holy Father, the Pope, belittling NATO. I mean, it's the guy just he has these enormous successes, but he just can't control himself. He has this lack of self-control, and he ends up, I think, sometimes hurting himself, and it's really kind of disappointing to see that. I mean, I support the guy's objectives. I just wish that sometimes, and I'm not the only one saying this. I think there's a lot of people out there who are very, very pro-Trump, that are saying, "God, man, you just let it be, man. Take get off of that, the tweeting and stuff in the middle of the evening. Whatever, you're not doing yourself any good, right? And those are the things that the enemy exploits, right? And that the Democrats exploit to their advantage.
He's an enemy as well. I don't think they're as much of an enemy of this nation as the Iranians are. Sorry, but they are. When you root for the defeat of
if you hand them, if you start saying crazy stuff like that, right?
It gives them fuel.
It gives them fuel. So don't give them the fuel, for Christ's sakes. He had taken the high road. He was sitting in a great position, saying, "Okay, we've backed off. We called the ceasefire. We're trying to reach a deal." Everybody was excited about it. The stock market rallied. Oil prices dropped. Okay, oil prices had gotten as high as $113 a barrel. They were in the mid 90s, a week ago.
They're down now.
As soon as things started to, the talk of an agreement, et cetera, oil prices fell again down to $82 a barrel. And you know where they are right now? I was just looking momentarily. Now they're back up at 95. Okay, so not 95. They're up $88 a barrel. Okay, but
88.
But they're going from 82 to 88 on the way back up to the 95 that we were a week ago. Thankfully, the stock market is still kind of holding stable, but once again, you've got oil prices came down. Now they're starting to ratchet back up again. Why? Because we have all this noise that we've injected, or Trump has injected into the conversation. And I don't know, man. I think I don't know what the hell's going to happen, man. I just hope that.
I know you want to chime in, and I wanted to push back a little bit on Raul's points there, which are actually very valid. But please, Marcus, you first.
Well, I'm not too worried about what Trump says, because the only ones who really pay attention to that are political junkies. The average person is really not too concerned. They're more looking at the economy, and I think that's going to stabilize and get better over time. My take is that kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I lost my train of thought. But go ahead, I'll get it back.
I would ask Raul. We'll get that train railed back for you pretty soon. I was going to ask you, Raul. Let's say that Trump had kept mum. And by the way, full disclosure, I've sent Trump more than a few shut the fuck ups in the wee hours myself. Now, let's say that this much desired ceasefire is reached. Who can trust and believe in any positive results from a ceasefire with an IRGC that worships death and doesn't give a shit if they want that 12th imam to show up? What value?
Listen, it's my response is it's better than nothing. And you know what? And once it's achieved, you take it one day at a time. Okay. And you keep trying to push the ball in the right direction. And I think that's kind of what Trump was inevitably going to face. Okay. But he didn't do himself any favors by adding fuel to the fire and picking a fight with, it all started with that talk about, wiping out an entire civilization. Okay. Come on, man, really. That's what upset the Pope. Okay. That's what upset. I mean, this is like a gift to the enemy, right? It literally is, on a silver platter. Here is a gift to the Ayatollahs and the IRGC. I am going to go out there and I'm going to put a tweet out there. I'm going to destroy your civilization. And what did that do? The people that were, supporting Trump were like, whoa, man, what the hell's going on with this guy? People like me, kind of
Yeah,
shocked. Hey, what is that? The people that were on the fence are now on the anti-Trump party, and the people that were anti-Trump before are now even more emboldened than ever. So he didn't do himself any favors. Okay, so it's just frustrating as all get out, man.
favors.
I remember what I said now.
Okay,
All right, let's go.
Like I said, it's just political theater, just words. I don't really give too much credit to what Trump says. However, we're looking at the political stage, and what a leader of a nation says something, other leaders and other people in their circle take seriously compared to like the political junkies. The normal person doesn't really pay attention. So when Trump is saying, "Hey, I'm going to wipe out you guys," it's sending a message directly to the leadership of Iran. Like, you either take it seriously or you don't, or it's going to get worse. Because right now, like every leader is trying to think, what is Trump doing? But if he maintains his position as a wild card, they're always going to second guess him. Like, like about Venezuela, no one would have guessed he's going to do a snatch and grab of euro, just beyond the pale, or do like a sort of take out nuclear power plants in Iran. But I think it's keeping them off balance, where it's part of his negotiation tactic. And the people in general, they're not really as what's that democratic strategy? It's economy stupid. It's all about stabilizing prices. It's all about making oil cheaper, and I think oil is still cheaper than the high end of what Biden is.
It is.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not too worried about it. We got the taxes, the tax breaks are rolling in. I think businesses are doing better. It just we're getting a little bit of a little bump on the cost of energy, but we're leading in natural gas. We're generating more revenue, so I'm not too worried. It just, in terms of like the midterms, we're waiting on the Supreme Court decision, but it has to have like the minority dissent, and they're kind of slow rolling it. But by then, I think we're going to get like maybe 6 more votes, like in Louisiana and
Yeah,
Texas.
that would be good.
So and then Omar's out. You get you get Swalwell. You get a few others or out of the sideline. So
Crockett's been out.
What?
Jasmine Crockett's been out for weeks.
Yeah. So I think it's good. I think we're going to come out ahead or status quo. So that's my take.
I want to talk about the Pope a moment. This is the same Pope. And by the way, he made a bigger mistake than Trump made a mistake, because the Pope is now being exposed, where before nobody was going to say, "Hey, Your Holiness, 40,000 people were slaughtered, civilians, women, and children in Iran. You didn't say a word, not a peep." Now they're throwing that in his face. "Hey, Your Holiness, you have enormous walls around the Vatican. I don't see you letting in any illegals. You guys have the mother of all borders. So shut the fuck up, with all due respect." I'm seeing, as far as the junkies that you describe, Mark, the political junkies, the keyboard warriors, I see a lot of keyboard warriors more attacking the Pope than they are Trump. But who knows? I'm just saying that the Pope is learning maybe a lesson. Be a pontiff and stay out of politics. My opinion, we haven't had a decent Pope since John Paul II. The ones after that have been a joke. They're politicians. Let's not forget who he met with before he made the remarks about the war. Who did he meet with? He met with what is it? Obama's the guy with a little mustache. David. Yeah. That's who he met with. He's a Chicago liberal. The Pope is a Chicago liberal. He met.
Yeah, but I wouldn't read too much into that, man. People are now trying to make it out to be that that the guy went there to get the Trump to start bad mouthing. I don't think I don't think that's the way it was playing out at all.
My point is the Pope also is getting upbraided and being reminded, stay in your
Wow.
lane. The Catholic Church has enough problems for the Pope to be ragging on Trump and the war. And no Pope in getting back to World War I, World War II, there was no Pope that spoke out about the hundreds of thousands of people that the Allies killed. Not a peep.
Well, look, man, I just think that like I said, I don't know. I think that it seems we haven't made any progress towards focusing on peace, and instead, we're and believe me, man, you know me. I mean, I'm not exactly a peacenik by any stretch of the imagination, but
You're not a dumb.
I'm getting, to a stage in my life where I'm just sort of like, like the old song says, why can't we just get along, man? I mean, it's just getting kind of crazy, right? I mean, on the one hand, I'm happy that my grandkids are not going to have to grow up in a world with Islamic terrorism. Okay. On the other hand, I'm thinking to myself, well, gee, man, but I mean, it seems that these wars, we said we were no longer going to be the world's policeman, but because there is nobody else to police the world, America still has to send our sons and our daughters to go and fight shit because, fight crazies because the rest of the world won't do it. Right. I think when the smoke clears, a decade from now, maybe this whole sort of one of the good things that will come out of this will be that hopefully, the UK and Europe will snap out of it and realize that, the enemy's already within there, and they do have to step up, and they do have to take a stronger leadership pull in a stronger leadership position in Europe, protecting their own interests. But anyway.
I don't think the EU is lost. I think they're a caliphate. The birth rates, they have the lowest birth rates on the planet. They're importing people that are having 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. I think the EU as we knew it is done. And God, I'd love to be wrong. We all want to be right in life, but if there's something I would love to be wrong about, is that. But I don't see. I was in France last fall, and I was in Germany before that, and Italy, and especially Germany and France. And I haven't been to Holland except a couple of years ago. It was very brief. They're crawling, with a Muslim. Basically, to me, they're occupiers, and they don't assimilate. Those people have no interest in assimilating. They're looking at it as conquered lands, and that is a problem. I don't know what a modern crusade maybe. I don't. This is why we can't count on Europe. This is why we can't count on Europe. I'm more heartened by the fact and encouraged that there is, as you earlier described, Raul, there is quite a resistance in Iran itself to the dictatorial regime. There is more resistance in a Muslim country than there is in Europe to that. And as far as peace with communism and Islam in the world, I don't know that we could ever have peace without having, Armageddon. It's a dire thought, but how do you defeat them? How do you defeat somebody that worships death, who doesn't care? It's not an easy nut to crack.
Yeah, not easy at all, man. All right, so I guess we're inconclusive.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction.
Please.
So you got Iran. Northeast is Turkmenistan.
Afghanistan?
And then on east of it is Afghanistan, and south of that is Pakistan. When I mentioned about the slow roll going east and Iran being more destabilized, you're going to see Afghanistan pushing their extremists going west. So my prediction is that within 6 months, you're going to see Pakistan and Turkmenistan through U.S. Support and guidance. You're going to see some surgical strikes in those the training camps, and I predict U.S. might even get involved, taking a lot of these camps out before, just to kind of soften it up to make it less effective to destabilize Iran during this maybe possible civil war.
You're speaking of training camps in Turkmenistan?
No,
Training camp
Afghanistan. I'm
Afghanistan.
saying that Turkmenistan and Pakistan going to kind of help kind of mess up Afghanistan being more proactive against Iran. And then you're going to get U.S. help to kind of take out some of the training camps there.
I don't trust the Pakis, as I call them. I don't trust them. They were hiding bin Laden. They are not a friend.
Yeah.
They are not a friend. They're opportunists, they're pragmatics, but I don't see them as our friend.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. They've shown it in action. All right, so I think we're pretty much wrapped up for the night. Very interesting conversation, and there's a lot of stuff that is obviously in flux, a lot to be decided. And I think when we meet in 2 weeks, some major shit will have hit the fan.
I think
That is
so.
the party thought for tonight. You have a party thought, Marcus, and then Raul before we end off.
I think you're right, man. I think this shit is going to hit the fan in the next couple of days. Something's going to have to give one way or another. I hope that what gives is peace, right? I hope that there's a continued effort to keep the lid on the hostilities, but we got to have progress. We have to have the Iranians come out and say, yes, we're giving up our nuclear ambitions. Yes, we're giving up our terror throughout the world. Without that, the killing starts again. And I don't think the Iranians are ready to make that decision yet. So
neither do I. Marcus, wrap us up.
I think the part of the peace would be for the IRGC to give up arms and to be protected, but that's like a big issue. They don't want to be be in the firing line with the Iranian people. So that's like a bridge to nowhere.
Where would they go? If they signed them out, where would they go?
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Libya.
Yeah, that would be a fitting punishment. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe if you like what you heard. And with that, I bid you all a good night.
Lebanon.